family. Good evening.
Welcome, everybody.
How you
to
doing?
have you.
Good to have you here this evening. I'm Adebola, and this is Tolulope, my husband.
Yeah.
And we'll be having couch session this evening.
Excited to have couch session. Yeah.
So before we start, can we know where you're joining us from in the comment section? We are joining you live from the studio this morning. And then we'll be having something really interesting. It's navigating changing seasons. Really looking forward to it. There's a lot of conversation around that. I almost feel like every now and then we are just in one season or the other, and it almost seems like it's unending. And so we want to have conversations, practical handles to see how to manage these spaces.
Yeah.
You good?
Because if we'll be honest, life changes on us. It's almost like sometimes you're struggling to keep a grip on just how much is changing, in whatever areas, whether in just your own individual journey as a person, whether it's your career, whether it's family, relationships. It just feels like a lot is always changing on us. So we hope that we can share some wisdom, what we've been learning, and from God's word, just about how we can navigate the seasons as they keep changing on us. Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot, and let's ask everybody also. Let's start from here. Where were you 10 years ago? What can you remember about yourself 10 years ago in whatever regard? Maybe for you it's like 10 years ago I was just born. No, maybe not just born, but where were you 10 years ago? Let's hear you guys.
10 years ago, I think I was in Ibadan.
Okay.
I was working a job. It was just our first year relationship anniversary that we started dating 14th June 2021. And so
2021. No, 2011.
2011. Sorry,
Yes,
2011.
Okay,
And then
good.
this was 2012. Yeah, so
That 14th June, by the way, should not be the anniversary, okay? It was actually ideally supposed to be like April or May, but she kept me waiting
when did
6
you
weeks.
ask me out?
I asked you out in April, and you kept me waiting for 6 weeks before saying yes.
Now that I know what I know, I probably should have kept him for like 6 months.
You'd have lost this, but don't let's talk about that. Okay.
Okay, so I was working a job. I was single. I was in my I was trying to start a master's program and all of that. But it was relatively a chilling season. Like looking back now, it seems chilling. Then it seemed like a lot of intensity. But when I know what I know now, what I'm going through now, when I look at that season, this was even nothing.
Yeah,
Like,
and to be honest, I think maybe almost all of us feel that way.
Yeah.
You look at where you were and what you were complaining about. Like when you were in school, you were like, they want to kill me. And then you got out of school, like, you're like, can I go back?
Right.
Like,
That's all right. Like, my complaints then was that I was closing late from work, was that I had a lot of stuff to do at home, but thinking about it now, what I have to do at home in my own house and what I had to do then was like nothing.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of intensity at the time with starting out a career, with navigating that space, and then maybe a lot of questions about this career thing. I wasn't sure about practicing law. I was still in that space of, should I go ahead with law? Should I think of something else? But then I just settled in to say, okay, this is what I have in my hands. I'll put myself into. So I poured myself into traveling, legal trips, trying to make up for everything that had to do with law. I tripped my head inside. So I think I was in that. I really was in that space then.
And when I think about it, it's one way to say, it almost feels like every new year you feel like, last year was even easier, and every new season has a way of feeling more intense. But the truth is, we want to be people that take every season in its own merit. You want to be somebody who knows what it means to say, well, this is where I am right now. This is where God has put me. This is what God has equipped me for. And I want to live in the full weight of it. One thing that I can think about, for example, is, my fashion sense of 10 years ago.
Did it really change?
Man, it has changed. I promise it has changed. It must change. If it doesn't change, I have issues with you. If your fashion sense has not changed,
so much.
It has changed. Please, I'll bring out your pictures and show the world what you thought was fashionable. And this is the deal. You know those pictures you see that you are like, who advised me? Like, what was I thinking? You're just totally like ashamed of and all.
Oh no,
of
I was
that.
thinner 10 years ago.
Oh yes, you were.
I was
You were.
thinner.
I agree on that. I also was not
Lanky.
this, But here's the deal. When I think about that and I look at those pictures and I see that sense of fashion, the joy for me is that on each one of those days, I promise you, I was living to the full.
Yeah.
I was giving my best, to the extent of which I understood, to the extent of what life was at that time, on that day, that I woke up. I was giving it the full. And that's kind of what I think is most important. So as the years roll by, there will be a lot of difference. A lot is going to change. But you want to be that person who is holding each season in front of you and bringing your best foot towards it. Okay, so maybe we should start breaking. Hey guys, keep sharing all the interesting things from 10 years ago. Let's hear from all of you, right? Just how much of your life has changed over the last 10 years. But let's start breaking out the conversation. If I would ask, what's that one thing maybe that you feel as we navigate seasons, you want to be holding on to, you want to be so conscious of, just in bringing your best into each season?
I think maybe for me, when I think about seasons, it's first the fact that God is aware of my seasons. God is the God of my journeys. Whether highs, whether lows, whether harmattan, whether heat, whether winter. Let's say winter, not harmattan. Whether winter. I feel it's just that reality that there are no stop gaps. You know how you go for a career interview, and then during your interview they ask you, between 2011 and 2013 you were not really working a job, what were you doing? And then you're trying to remember. I was just, and for them it's like a red flag, but for God I feel like there are no gaps. There's not that time where it feels like nothing is happening in your life. I think God is always all the while at work in us, and so with that consciousness, just put your best into whatever you're doing. So knowing that even if I'm in a season where it's not so loud, it's not so exciting, it's probably even a hiding season, or a season where I'm getting to learn things outside my comfort zone and all of that, it doesn't mean that all of those things are just let's quickly do it so that we get to the main season. No, God is packing all the bricks of all of that and is putting it together for all that is ahead of us. So I feel maybe I can't say enough that God is the God of our season. God is aware of our seasons, and then He puts us in it.
That's good. Good. And just add to that God is aware and God is intentional about our seasons. So just that, when I think back over it and how much has changed, just knowing that every season was a part of the whole. So it's kind of like maybe you're climbing a staircase, and sometimes your mind is so much on where the staircase is getting you to. And so, as you start the first step, you're really just thinking about the building, the top and all of that. But knowing that the reason why you can climb the last staircase that will get you into the building is because you climbed the one before it. The reason why you climbed the one before it is because you can go on that way. So it's in taking the step in front of me now that I can take the next one. So it's all a part of it. Just knowing that God is aware on one hand of the steps in front of me, and that awareness, you want to know, also means that He has equipped you for this. He has prepared you for this. He's working in this, and He's intentional about it. That every part of your life is joining into something bigger. So sometimes that might be seasons that are exciting, that you really love, and that can be really great. But seeing that as a part of your whole life, and sometimes it might be seasons that you are not so excited about, that you're having to deal with, but also seeing that as a part of your life.
Yeah, and sometimes some seasons stretch you more than other seasons.
So true.
Some seasons feel like I'm just chilling. Like you're almost asking yourself, is there something wrong? And it's just probably God give you a lot of rest, a lot of bonding time because of all that's ahead of you. I was thinking about it when you were talking about when I was in my parents' house in that 2012 season. And I felt like it was unreasonable. I was having to do some cooking, some house chores that were like, I felt like we can outsource these things and just, but when I think back now where I am, I do them effortless. Like it almost feels like this is nothing. And thinking back, I just realized that it's probably something I've done a lot in those seasons that prepared me. The calculations, the knowing when this happens, when that happens, how to program this and that. I feel it was a lot of preparation for me, even in this season that I'm in. So what I find is that instead of me trying to learn that now, I'm just flowing into it and then learning a lot of things that might be useful in this season or even take me on to the next season.
So good. So somebody told me, just to land on what you're saying, somebody told me a long time ago that the reason for yesterday is today, the reason for today is tomorrow. Absolutely. And that, as I've gotten older, has made a lot more sense to me. The reason for today is tomorrow. True. In many ways, you'll just find that today is really just a lot of some form of preparation ground, putting us in shape for what tomorrow holds. So you do want to be the kind of person who is maximizing every season right in front of you, making sure that you are really getting your grip on it, getting your hands on. Maybe we should talk a bit more about that. Like, how can we be maximizing the seasons in front of us, especially knowing that seasons are always changing. It feels like as you are really getting grips with this, it feels like it's moving on. How can we be getting maximum value of every season?
I think one is being aware. I think it's very important to be aware that your season has even changed. So you have maybe maybe you're earning XXX and then now you're earning YYY. A season has changed for you. Maybe you were single and then now you're in a relationship. A single as or you're even single and then you're having to work a different job in a different location, or you didn't have kids, now you have kids, or you are in a different job, a different setting, or even the country where your friends are not with you, or the kind of friends you have now moved out of. I think just being aware first that this has changed. Like I'm not the person. I feel sometimes we forget the fact that things change because the day just keep going. We keep sleeping and we keep waking up. But then at some point you feel like the weather is warmer or the weather is colder. What is your response in that instance? So I feel it's very important first to even know that something has changed.
Yeah.
And when we start that, then we're going to begin to sit down to say, okay, what can I practically begin to do in response to this?
So good. So yeah, so important. I married well. This is wisdom speaking. So because she made me lose my train of thought. Okay, yeah. So I was saying that so true. That don't be blind to the fact that seasons are changing, right? Don't just take life as one whole lump sum. Things shift, and that, like she said, I should have a different response in a different season. So, for example, when it was cold, I'm looking for a winter jacket. When it's hot, I'm not just wearing the same clothes I've always worn. Knowing that seasons have changed. So some things you might want to think about, for example, in maybe sometimes a major shift in your life, or sometimes just periodically taking stock, right? That means that there are times that I'm moving from one city to another, or I was in school, I'm no longer in school, right? There are sometimes major headlines that have changed the season. But sometimes you also just need to periodically take stock. That means 6 months later, you just want to stop and reevaluate where am I, and then see the changes, okay? And some of the things you should be asking yourself are, questions like, what do I have in this season that I didn't have in the last? So you are more aware of the new variables. So if, for example, I've moved from one city to another, what are the new opportunities I have that I didn't have in the last? Or again, what did I have in the last that I don't have now? So maybe in the last season, I got to be physically around my friends. Now I am not physically around my friends. So you want to know, how am I making up for that? Or am I just starting to live in the default of, I miss them, and I'm not proactively taking a new decision about how I can be plugging those spaces? So you might want to say, okay, you know what, since I'm not physically around my friends, let me think about how every week I make sure I'm getting on a call with this person and with that person. Not just by design, if you get what I'm trying to say, okay? Deliberately, right? So, not just living life as a lump, but every here and there, just trying to stop and say, what is shifting, what is changing, what isn't the same, so that I can be making decisions that are in tune with the new seasons where I am. Okay?
I quite agree with you. I think also important is to also be asking ourselves, what shouldn't change?
Right. So
when our seasons change. So many things would change. I wear sweaters now, I wear raincoat, or I have an umbrella. But some things would not change. Things like I still wear clothes in any seasons. So I feel just identifying those things, those structures in your lives that won't change, and the principles shouldn't change. So things like your relationship with God, your relationship in terms of honor to people around you, to your values, and the things that have brought you this far. So I feel it's very important to always keep that in the fore of our mind, so that we don't just get into that season and feel like, okay, this has changed and everything has to change. Everything has to be based on something like what I think about the chameleon. You know, chameleon gets into a room and then it just changes into the color that is most predominantly. I feel sometimes it's safe for us to just get into a new season and just go with the flow. But I want to be that kind of Christian that is not just changing into what is predominantly, but is looking within and thinking about what are the principles that I live my life by, and I'm keeping to them, whether or not seasons change.
Right. So an important distinction that maybe everybody needs to be able to make as we do life is separating between what are our principles and what are our practices, right?
Absolutely.
So there are practices that flow out of your principles, but if you think about it, as you change seasons, you want the practices to change, right? Because the principles should stay, but practice should change, right? So I say that because the practices are an expression of your principles in tune with the season you're in. For example, if I live in a particular country, there are certain things I will do as a practice because of the country I live.
Yeah.
But the bigger question is, what are the principles upon which that practice is standing?
Yeah.
And so in some season of your life, the maybe you change where you live. That means that I really need the practice to change, because one thing I don't want to be is somebody living in a former season of my life when there are new opportunities in front of me. So I don't want to be somebody who is outdated, who is like living an analog life in a digital era. I don't want to be, I don't want to be backdated in terms of my expressions and my thinking. So we really need our practices to change. But the strength of our practices changing is that we're able to identify our principles. So if it's just a thing of, everybody here is doing something differently, I will do things differently. The truth is you're just going to be swept away by every new season. But what gives you the confidence and the strength to actually change practice is that you are aware of the principles. So like she said, maybe really thinking about the things that don't change so that you can identify the things that should change, like the things that should never change, the things that are static, that are fixed about who I am, so that I can identify the things that don't change.
Yeah, great word.
Okay, let's bring this a bit closer. Maybe thinking about scriptural examples of this and how we can be working this out. For me, I think a lot about somebody like Daniel and how aware Daniel is. If it's this state of awareness that now being in a strange land is not the same as being in my home country, where I'm serving, I'm aware of the challenges. I'm aware also, like we're saying, about my principles, my values, what amounts to defiling myself, what does not amount to defiling myself. What are the things that would stay the same, but what are the things that I must be willing to change in a new season of my life? And you think about the story of Daniel and how he really honored God through different seasons, and maybe more than just honoring God or as an expression of honoring God, how he actually thrived through different seasons. Now, here's what you must keep in mind. The last thing God wants for us is that because we're changing seasons, then we're getting swept away, or we're losing our essence or our relevance and all of that. I really believe that God brings new seasons into our lives as new opportunities to thrive. So it's like you have a new opportunity to express the very, principles, who we are, how we start to bring ourselves into new seasons. So as I think about Daniel, for example, I just think it's so clear that awareness thing we're talking about, not just being blind and running into a new season, doing things anyhow, but that awareness thing, what has changed? What do I need to hold on to? I don't just want to be the chameleon running into a new room and I just become the colors. I want to be able to identify my principles, know which practices I can change as I navigate a new season, right?
Yeah, I also think about Esther.
Okay.
Esther also was in a different situation, but this time for her, at some point, she didn't even realize what the import of her presence in the kingdom, in the king's palace was, till Mordecai prompted her. I like the fact that she had the right people in her life that could remind her, that could sound out to her. I think it's in Esther 4 verse 14, when Mordecai was telling
why so nobody okay, that's right.
When Mordecai was telling her that, like, you never know why God has brought you into this kingdom for such a time as this. So I think it's just very important to be asking ourselves in our new seasons, why am I here? Why is God bringing me here? It's not like God is just lost for ideas of what to do with you and he just pushes you there. For everything that God has in plan for us, he has planned it out from the beginning. And so this is just unraveling in this season for you. And so as you get into that room, whether a new room, whether a wider room, whether even a constrained room, whatever opportunities God bring your way, always be asking yourself, why am I here? And how can I be making the best of what God has called me to? And so like Mordecai told Esther, I said, you never know, God might have brought you into this room for such a time as this, for such a time. That means this time will pass, but then while you're here now, here and now, what can you be doing with this time that God has given to you? I think it's very important.
That's so loaded, right? So think about it this way. Just writing off what you said, I think it's so true that every season of our lives, one we have tried to establish is different. You're not where you were 10 years ago, obviously. A lot is different. But think a lot about every new season in terms of the opportunities that they bring. Right? So on one hand, there is the challenges that they bring, the peculiarities that I have to stand up to. But I think there's opportunity in every new season. Like she said, just that intentionality about God in bringing us into a season and knowing that there is opportunity here. So what does opportunity sound like to me? Opportunity might be the privilege to do something I couldn't do before, that I have more room, I have more space to do something I couldn't do before. Again, opportunity might simply be how I can take advantage of adversity to grow in a way that I couldn't grow before.
Absolutely.
So if, for example, I'm in a season of pressure, it affords me an opportunity to grow in a way I couldn't grow where there was no pressure. Okay. So that opportunity mindedness about seasons means that you're constantly seeing what this season affords you that other seasons didn't afford you, whether it's coming at you through adversity or through more space and more room and more resource. I honestly think more resource marks new seasons, where you have a little more, there's wider space to be able to do more. It's new opportunities. So like she said, just remembering, and what a blessing it is to have those kind of Mordecai voices in seasons that can remind us that, there is a sense of purpose around the seasons that we are in. Okay? So what have we said today? I think we have said a lot about being intentional about our seasons, knowing that because God himself is intentional about every season that we find ourselves in. So we don't want to be people just living life as a lump. We want to be people that are approaching every season with a great weight of intentionality, aware, what are the new opportunities? What does this afford us? We also said that we want to be deliberate about it. So we want to be asking ourselves, what is new in this season? What is different? What are the principles that we hold? What are the practices that we change? Anything else I missed out? What have we tried to say?
I think you covered basically.
Okay. Any last words?
I think also you also mentioned what are the voices that are speaking to me.
The voices,
this season.
Making sure that we, as seasons change, just making sure that whatever that looks like in terms of keeping the right voices. So whether you're bringing them with you into a new season or you're finding them in a new season, but never living our lives away from the sense of the right voices are speaking to us here and now. And honestly, one of the things I'm grateful for, however we approach the conversation of technology, I think there's a great blessing of technology. 10 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, it was almost like if you change some seasons, then the amount of what you have to lose is extreme. But now the truth is, if we take advantage of technology in the right ways, we are able to maybe close a bit of the gap in some areas of our lives. Okay. Any last words?
No. I think just staying true to your seasons. I can't stress that enough. I feel like seasons won't stop changing, but then God remains true. God is a present help in time of need. So even when seasons change, God doesn't change his colors with the season. The Bible tells us that God is the same yesterday, he's the same today, and he's the same forevermore. And so that means that if you've ever seen any good in God ever, he's still there, he's present to help you, to just empower you through the seasons. If it's the right voices you need, if it's direction, if it's even the strength to go through a difficult season or an intense season, God is present and is always there to help us through.
So good. Honestly, friends, the truth is, as seasons change, sometimes nobody really understands. Nobody really understands sometimes the phases you're in, the amount of pressure that you're dealing with, the amount of what you're having to live up to. Sometimes even in a positive way, sometimes it's that so much is happening, there's so much opportunity that I'm having to stand up to. And sometimes it's even just beyond words. But here's what I hope you would never forget, that God is aware of every season that you face. And I hope that encourages you really, because it might look like a lot on you, but God is aware and God is intentional. And he's using this season within a bigger picture of the story of your life. So if you would also be intentional, just like God is intentional, I think this season that you're walking will definitely bring out the beautiful God colors in your life and in your story. Okay. Absolutely. So I hope that encourages you today. And I hope it has been a blessing. Whatever season you're in, we're praying you God's best. We're praying you God's help and just the wisdom of God to really understand the seasons, to know your principles and practices, and to be forging your way ahead in where you are. All right. Looking forward to a great weekend in church. This Saturday, it's all about the men.
Yes, men. Oh, sorry.
It's not yes, men. Still men. Our Still Men event on Saturday evening. Looking forward to having you guys. Invite all the men in your world. It's not your stuff. Just leave us. Invite all the men in your world. All right. Your boyfriend, your husband, your ex.
Your son.
your son, all the guys, your father, invite all the men in your world to be a part of this on Saturday.
Father sounded like an insult, like your father.
Your father. Sorry. Okay. And on Sunday, it's Father's Day on Sunday. Can you believe? Like, it's Father's Day. Guys, you know what I'll tell you?
This is the one opportunity.
It's the one season of our lives that we get to do this, all right? I promise you that by next week, it's probably going to be International Women's Day International Women's Day of blue shirts or anything, so let's make the most of this. Sunday is Father's Day, 2 services, 8 a.m. and 9:45 a.m. Looking forward to a special time. You guys don't even know what you're in for yet. It's going to be everything amazing, okay? Why are you sounding sarcastic?
No, now we don't know what we're in for.
We're not talking to you. I'm talking to the guys, all right? So, guys.
The women will love them.
Okay, yes, and the women who love us. All right. Looking forward to a great weekend. Have fun where you are with all that you are doing. And may God bless the season that you're in for you. And may you thrive in it. Amen. In Jesus' name. Thanks for being here this evening.
We love you.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. We love you. All right.
We might.
Good night, everybody.